Thank you, Mr. Chair. Madame Jeffrey, have any of the processes, posture, policies, or measures recently implemented triggered any review of security clearances in PHAC other than the standard review every 10 years?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think, as the committee is aware, there is an ongoing RCMP investigation, and I'd have to refer the committee to my colleagues at Public Safety and the RCMP in terms of their investigations and any work that's underway there.
That's Dr. Chu and Dr. Chang.
I'm not aware of the details of their investigations, so I will have to refer you to Public Safety.
Thank you. Are PRC citizens who are not Canadian citizens nor citizens of formerly allied countries allowed to be granted secret security clearances?
The policy on security clearances is set by the Treasury Board Secretariat, and it is irrespective of nationality.
Thank you for that. Paragraph 31 of the June 30th, 2020 CSIS assessment, and Dr. Chu states that an individual...
Mr. Villemer, you're back with us, are you?
Oui, monsieur.
All right.
Yes.
What we're going to do is we're going to give you 5 minutes because you've missed 2 of your 2.5-minute segments. We have Mr. Cooper now, we have Mr. Erskine-Smith, and then we'll go to you for 5 minutes, okay?
Merci beaucoup, c'est très apprécié.
All right.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Michael's 3.5 minutes.
Ms. Jeffrey, through you, Mr. Chair, paragraph 31 of the June 30th, 2020 CSIS assessment and Dr. Chu states that an individual identified as restricted visitor number 1 had access to the Winnipeg lab. This individual was an employee of the People's Liberation Army-controlled Beijing Institute of Biotechnology, whose mentor was a major general identified as Beijing's chief biological defense expert engaged in research relating to biodefense and bioterrorism. Did this individual have a secret security clearance?
I'm going to refer to Dr. Poliquin about the processes for restricted visitors at the lab.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
It's yes or no.
In terms of access to the laboratory, restricted visitors were a special category of individuals that were under escort at all times, but would not have had access to high containment laboratories.
So who authorized this Beijing military scientist access to the lab?
I would say that the policy on visitors restricted their access to areas in line with the clearances that they had, and so there would have been no access of visitors to restricted level 3.
That's not my question. They had access to the lab. They were in the lab. They might not have been in the level 4 part of the lab, and I'm asking you, Ms. Jeffrey, or whoever may answer, who authorized that access to a Beijing military scientist whose mentor was Beijing's foremost expert in bioterrorism?
I'll first say that when we use the term National Microbiology Lab, we're referring to a complex of buildings that has both secure and public facilities. I'll turn to our Chief Security Officer to talk about the policy.
I want to know who authorized that individual.
We will return to the committee with that information. I don't have it at hand. But.
Paragraph 54 of the same CSIS assessment states that Dr. Chu gave access to the lab to at least 2 individuals who were employed with PRC institutions whose work is not aligned with Canadian interests. Did Dr. Chu on her own have the authority to grant access to those individuals, and if not, who did?
I'll refer to Dr. Poliquin for the procedures at the lab.
Yes, prior to access to the laboratory, so at the time, an individual would have been able to fill out a facility access request form for a particular individual, and those are submitted to the security division for review to provide access. But as previously stated, access to the laboratory does not give full access to all parts of the laboratory. There are strict.
I understand that, and I thank you for that clarification. I presume that would also apply to the Beijing military scientist who was a restricted visitor. Would CSIS intelligence assessments or reviews been undertaken before those individuals would have been granted access to the lab?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll turn to our Chief Security Officer to talk about the procedures.
Thank you for the question. The individuals attending the lab would be attending as temporary visitors under the policy at the time, which required them to be escorted if they were in the lab. They were granted access because they were not going to be in any part of the lab that was secure or required a clearance.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper.